Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners policy session on this August 2, 2023. Gary Schmidt, would you tee up the first item?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner West is delayed, but will be here in a bit. Otherwise, all other commissioners are present. Your policy session today is Office of Economic Development, Membership Dues, and Economic Development Awards Program. This is a continuation of this topic you had a few weeks ago. The main presenters are Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, and Laura Edmonds, Manager of our Office of Economic Development. And we have several external guests who I'll ask Dan and Laura to introduce at the right time. Please go ahead.
So I'm just going to start this off and hand it over to Laura. Chair Smith, Commissioners, thanks for the time again today. We were here on June 28th of 2023 and presented a proposal looking at funding a slate of organizations and membership fees. At that time, you told us you'd like to consider a number of them again and get some more information regarding them, and we're here to have that discussion. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Laura.
Okay. And good morning. Thank you for having us. Chair Smith, Commissioners, it's an honor and privilege to be before you again. And as Dan mentioned, so it was discussed and recommended that we delay the decision on the membership dues for the Clackamas County Business Alliance and the awards funding for the Clackamas County Historical Society, which is MOOT, Museum of Oregon Territory, Clackamas County Arts Alliance, and the Regional Arts and Culture Coalition, until you could hear from both the Arts Alliance and the Regional Arts Coalition, who you will hear from today. Those were the two presentations asked for. But before we get to our guest presentations, the first item up and on your packet is item number 1. And this was, so when you look at this, please refer to attachment A, page 2 for the membership dues listings. And so item 1 is the discussion for Clackamas County Business Alliance. So the initial recommendation before you is to reduce the membership dues to the level that matches those chambers providing similar services, just like our previous conversation, if you recall. But since that last discussion, it's been brought to our attention that CCBA's, and I'll reply to, if you don't mind, CCBA, Clackamas County Business Alliance, all right, that their minimum dues for a public entity the size of Clackamas County is $10,000. With no exceptions of a reduced rate. This has been confirmed with CCBA. It appears that they've got an adopted fee structure that is based on population of the public partner, and the rate is at 0.1% with a maximum of $10,000. So as you can see, due to the size of Clackamas County, then we would hit the max threshold. So since this has been confirmed, the option 1 to reduce dues to $1,200 is no longer viable. And so you are now being respectfully requested that you consider, is that?
Finish your presentation, please, Laura.
Okay, please. So I'm just trying to go through what we know to be fact now. So, so the considerations are option 2 and option 3 as stated on your agenda.
Okay, first of all, we have items 1, 2, 3, 4 that we will be taking up separately,
Yes.
and there will be a motion for each. Gary, please explain the CCBA.
Yes, so right now, Commissioners, you're discussing item 1 in the staff report, which is the Clackamas County Business Alliance dues. I suggest you discuss that now and take action. And Nellie, the Executive Director, is in the room, should you wish to ask her directly. But what CCBA has explained to us is $10,000, as Laura explained, is kind of the minimum structure for any public entity over a certain size, which would be us.
Is that in statute?
It's in their bylaws or their
Their
organization.
bylaws.
Theirs, not ours.
That is how they operate.
Correct. But my opinion is, of course, Commissioners, with respect, you decide what you want to pay. So if you do want to have a lower rate, that's ultimately your decision to make, but it may impact our membership. We'll still be a member, but you decide.
Well, Commissioners, we'll have a discussion about this, but there's also the Oregon City Business Alliance, of which we participate actually quite regularly in very good forums. And I don't believe there's a membership for that, although we pay our lunches, which we should pay our lunches. And I suppose we need to figure out exactly what is the benefit of paying one organization $10,000. And I look at them as a chamber. actually, I do look at them as a chamber. I'm a little bit saddened by the fact that they're not willing to accept, as Laura said, she tried to negotiate a fee structure that they would not want to do anything less than $10,000. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I just wonder, is there any more of the presentation on the Business Alliance topic before I comment? That's it? Okay. I believe at the when we last met, was that a few weeks ago? I believe my request, and maybe I wasn't clear, but I was trying to understand or ask for a policy or a structure in which we would, in the sense of the Business Alliance, be able to straight face justify policy where we, fund, let's say WEA, a business alliance who's not in the county, and then defund or reduce the funding for a business alliance that's in Clackamas County. The OCBA, they're active, but they're not asking for dues from us, so we don't have a request from them that I'm aware of. I don't know how their membership structure works, but we don't have a request. So I'm just looking for what I had asked for last time was something like that. What is our policy as opposed to what appears to be more shooting from the hip, if you will. Pardon that expression. Secondly, going back, and maybe Gary, you could help me understand the agreement back when Chair Bernard was present with CCBA was, a structure, financial structure with a strategy and some deliverables, and then that agreement of the $10,000 per month. So, I thought mutually we lived up to that. So I just want to make sure, were there any metrics in there that have not been lived up to, or is this just us poised to pull back on that obligation?
Yes, the county made a significant financial contribution to the CCBA with the board's approval 4 or 5, 6 years ago, and had metrics which CCBA met. They achieved the things we asked them to do. Part of that was to restructure their dues, cost, and how they structure their dues and organizationally. So they did do that. That was a request we made as part of the funds we gave them. So they achieved everything we asked them to do with those funds we gave them, and this was part of the due structure they created. But again, that's their bylaws, that's their organizational structure. So your choice is now, what do you wish to do as far as being a member?
Okay. So, Chair, thanks, Gary, for that response. Now that I have a clear picture, I would love to see a greater business representation similar to what the WEA does on behalf of Washington County. I'd love to see that greater expansion. The chambers are, there's several of them. I think they're doing great work, but I do see them different. I do see them being quite different, not dissimilar to what the Chamber of Commerce is for Beaverton as to what that relationship is with WEA. So while I would love to see it grow, I also, want to respect and honor that we had an agreement, and this is consistent with that. And so I'm not inclined to pull back on that agreement at this time. It doesn't seem justified if there's not any kind of a policy or rationale that says we should defund one of our own and fund WEA. It doesn't smell right.
Well, I think Laura Edmonds needs to address that. I'm sure you did an analysis of WEA and CCBA. Dan, Laura?
If I could be so bold as to start. I want to start with the question about the policy. We didn't bring it back in front of you again, but there was the policy that we adopted on the analysis that you had requested us to complete when we were assessing all these various fee structures. This was talked at the June 28th meeting. I can give you a copy of that again if you don't have that available. But basically, those matrix of evaluation criteria were around, aligning with, the board's goals, aligning with the Office of Economic Development's goals and objectives. It's, providing support, et cetera. These were kind of those primary elements that we were assessing when looking at all these different entities and these funding requests. And then as to the work of CCBA, Laura completed an analysis. We weren't aware at that point in time of the funding structure, which may have may have changed that discussion to some extent, and we can own that. That's our fault. But it is their adopted fee structure, and based on that, you see a recommendation today that we value. I think we value when we support CCBA. And with that, it's a discussion with the board on what that funding level should be. It is their structure. And so I don't want to get this discussion into are we a part of CCBA or not a part of CCBA discussion? It's rather, just around the dollar amount.
All right. Well, Chair, based on the information at hand and the updated information from the last meeting, again, business to business, where the county's a business or not, but as a business person, I think we should honor our agreements, and therefore I move to fund CCBA at the $10,000 mark.
Well, we have other commissioners in the queue, so I'm not going to recognize the motion until everybody gets an opportunity to speak. Commissioner Savas, I just think that's good business.
Well,
Thank you very
We can still have
much.
discussion, Chair, so.
Yeah, we're going to have discussion. Commissioner Scholl, go ahead, please.
Yes. A couple points, Laura Edmonds. Is it correct that we don't pay any dues to OCBA?
That is correct.
Okay. And am I to understand that CCBA says that if we don't pay the 10,000 based on their criteria, that we're not going to, and we pay something less, that we will not be recognized as a member of CCBA?
That is,
It's 10,000 or you don't play.
it is my understanding it's 10,000 as the membership, and that's the only alternative.
Okay. Well, I understand that a reduction from 10,000 to the recommended amount of 1,200 might be a bit of a shock to CCBA. Perhaps the board could consider a compromise, maybe $5,000 this year, and then we'll look at it again next year. Okay, I think my interaction with CCBA has been positive. I think they're a good organization. Okay, so as we get through this, to see how far your $1 million of lottery money goes, you see. So I like to be able to look at all these other things and balance them out and maybe get back to CCBA and see if 5,000 or, like Commissioner Saba says, 10,000 is more appropriate, or maybe your recommendation of 1,200 is most appropriate. Thank you.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, so I have a question, and I don't know who we can answer, but $10,000 is the fee structure. How many other public entities are paying that level of dues? Are there other public entities that are a member of the CCBA? And if not, is it appropriate, Chair, to
Yes.
ask the director
Yes.
to come forward and answer those questions for me?
Nellie DeVries, would you like to come forward, please?
I'm just going to ask to see.
Yeah.
I
Please
wanna get
introduce yourself,
I
but
wanna
go
get
ahead,
a
continue.
I want to get a feel for, because one of the things I've been concerned about with the CCBA, as I said, I was here at the beginning of it. It had originally started because of the Stafford Triangle business with one of the folks, you remember, who really wanted to get land developed in the middle of that, okay? And it has since, I think, morphed into what is a good thing, which is more business. But I need to know the mix of public, private, and the sizes of your businesses, and, I mean, all of those kinds of things. And and we asked you to do a number of things, but what specific outcomes can you tell me that has been valuable to expand, recruit, and business in this county? But also the fee structure is the first question, so.
Well, if
Please
we,
introduce yourself.
Yeah,
sorry, Nellie
yeah.
DeVries, Clackamas County Business Alliance Executive Director. First of all, if I may, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to directly approach the fee structure, which
Okay.
was your original
That's true.
question.
Right.
Sorry, and then.
Oh, no, that's
invite you to
okay.
fill
And then
me
we'll
up
go.
on the rest.
Yeah, that's okay.
But we mirror Westside Economic Alliance, and so that is literally where our fee structure came from, was Westside Economic Alliance. So we provide advocacy and additional things to chambers, so it's hard to be compared to a chamber. And I would also like to say that in the last board meeting, it was described that we lost board members, or we lost members, and our membership has not declined even though we went through COVID. And so actually, we picked up 3 new members just in the last 3 months. So I'm not saying we're like massively expanding, but with all the growth that's happening in Clackamas County, especially with the transportation, again, working on I-205 and everything, we've got a lot of new David Evans and Associates. Like we're growing in our capacity, and we will continue to grow. But we did go through COVID, and we did go through the inability to have in-person meetings, which was really difficult. But we continue to grow. We've maintained everything that we've done, and we had changed our due structure right before, right before COVID started. And so we have worked very hard. Well, I have, but it's been a really tough few years. And this $10,000, you are going to be the only group that pays $10,000 because you're our largest member.
Okay. So are there other so there are no other public entities such as us? I mean, we're it, pretty much.
Well, I mean, we've got other cities that pay 0.1 times the population. And so it's really hard for us to say, okay, well, we'll give the county a deal.
No, I'm not asking for that. I'm just trying to get a sense of what your
Yeah,
board has made.
yeah.
No, don't worry about that. I'm just trying to get a sense of how many public entities and how many private business entities actually are in the organization, because I haven't, again, I'm asking because I have not been going.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that we were also a bit misrepresented in terms of us being more public than private, because we are part public, part private, but it's always hard to describe because we've got several cities, we've got multiple cities in our organization, but we also have more business than cities. But it's the goal of CCBA is really to create the dynamic between public and private and create that conversation so that we can all work together and actually be successful rather than working in our own silos. And that has been one of the things that we've worked really hard on. And I think we do provide that forum of conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions.
Yes,
Chair, I have one more question.
Judge Fernelli? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Could you paint a picture for us of the benefit that the people of Clackamas County would receive from that from a $10,000 dues? In other words, could you relate to us the actual practical benefit of the people and businesses of Clackamas County that they would get in exchange for the $10,000 dues?
Absolutely. The practical benefit is the fact that we have a venue for public officials to come in and have a conversation with businesses to say, hey, this is what we're looking at passing. If you're looking at passing a vehicle registration tax, what can you stomach? Because we have to pass a tax, because we have to, it's probably a bad example, but because we have to actually fund our transportation system. And businesses can therefore come back and say, hey, this is where we're at. And, we compromise and we work together and we do what we do. And then the other side is businesses then have access to local elected officials, and they have the opportunity to say, hey, I really want to put a business on a land this size, and this is what I need. And then finally, it's an opportunity for us to provide information to our membership. And so, We literally do everything the West Side Economic Alliance does. So, the fact that we're not considered equal is very, quite frankly, frustrating.
Okay, thank you.
What's frustrating?
That we're not considered equals to West Side Economic Alliance.
Yeah, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah. Nellie, TriMet is a member, correct? What are their dues approximately?
They pay $1,500.
Okay, and it's based on their employee size?
It's based on that's a good question. It's based on,
High budget.
well, no, it's based may I get back to you on that?
Yes, you may.
Sorry.
Yeah, because I was kind of, when Commissioner Schrader asked the question about public agencies, you mentioned the cities, so I'm aware of that. I'm sure that their metric is similar to our
Get back to
metric.
my laptop, I can get back, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go get that information and come back. So Gary, your light is on.
Looking at your website, we can tell you right here.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
So the Clackamas County Business Alliance website lists that public sector agencies, they have a flat rate dues of $1,500.
And we're
then
not
county or
considered public
cities.
sector.
Sorry.
That's the same as West Side Economic Alliance. Our dues they mirror West Side Economic Alliance.
I do have a question. Paul, you have anything more you want to say?
Well, I do based on the response, so, but you can go ahead.
You want to make a motion?
You already did.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, too.
Okay, then I have a question, but can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Okay, so who is your president right now?
Our president currently is Tom Markgraf at TriMet.
TriMet. And this commission has been consistently taking the position against tolling,
Yes.
but I don't believe TriMet has taken that position against tolling. Dan, is that correct?
I have not heard that position from that entity.
Yeah, okay, so this is my rub. Why are we supporting an organization with $10,000 that's going diabolically against what this board is trying to do and protects its tax-paying citizens when I think, this is just mine, that you now have a president who is probably not going to support this Board of Commissioners, and your organization is not going to support this Board of Commissioners in our fight against tolling.
Our board has taken a stand against tolling.
But you have a new president. Is he also on board with that?
That doesn't change our position. The board votes as a board.
When does that?
Our last board meeting.
And when did the president come on?
Like 2 months ago, if that.
So he's a new president.
Because our president had to step down because she went from,
That's
KJ
okay. You don't have to say why. She just stepped down. That's okay. I don't want to.
It wasn't a problem, it was just she changed jobs and,
No, but,
Couldn't do it.
I have trouble with that. I have trouble, and this analogy may not be placed, but we're fighting for our very lives in this county. And we need every single ally on this tolling issue. And to me, I am not totally convinced that once this new president gets embedded and he establishes his, quote, base in your organization, that your group is always going to be with us against tolling. That's just my opinion.
may I?
Yes, you may.
So he stepped in to fill a spot because our president had to leave, and he's temporary, he's a fill-in, and we are not going to change our position on tolling. I
Not
feel
unless
like
your
that's a
board
kind of
wants
an
to.
unfair accusation.
Okay. It's not an accusation, madam. It is, it's facts how I'm reading them. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Well, now I have more to say. First of all, I think the principle that we pay dues if you, or the proposition that we pay dues if you support everything we do or ask or say, or position we take, I think is a little problematic, not very democratic. But I don't see a conflict here, and to propose a hypothetical that because a certain position of a certain member is, whether that is an interim president or whatnot, somehow changes the whole makeup or the whole positioning of an organization, I think that's also, I think, very undemocratic and presumptuous. So,
Can I answer that?
no, I'm not looking for a response. So I just feel that, frankly, that's a little bit overreaching. And if we're going to do that, if that's our position, then are we asking that of every chamber or every city, even at C4? Just because C4, we don't fund per se a city, but just because a city or a city member may not agree with us doesn't really change the fact of the consensus that we have. You know, we don't all, you know, we have over 100 elected officials in Clackamas County. We don't always agree, but that doesn't mean we don't come to the table. That doesn't mean that we eliminate a table. I just think that's a little bit of a stretch to make that presumption, especially at the dais in public, that you agree with us or we're not going to fund you.
No, I didn't say agree with us or not going to fund us. I wanted to know if their position was strong. I didn't say, Paul, you interpret it differently. Now, this is coming from you who presents hypotheticals all the time at the dais. So I take exception with you thinking that I can't have my opinion here when every other commissioner has voiced their opinion on this. I didn't say that we weren't going to fund you if you didn't take a position. I asked what the position was and if their leadership was strongly behind that position. Let's make no mistake on that. Commissioners, what do you want to do with this? Commissioner Scholl?
Sure, I have one more question. So what we're looking at here today looks like, maybe 260-some thousand, what we're looking at. The document says that we're looking at maybe $1 million in lottery funds for FY '23-24. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if we were to go one more year at $10,000 for CCBA, would that put pressure on the remaining balance of lottery funds that we have to work with? In other words, is this a huge impact? One thing about this, or the discussion this morning, is that maybe it sent a message to CCBA board that, the county does have needs to be supported, lottery, tolling being one of them. So if there's not a great impact on the amount of money we have this morning, then that's significant in my mind. Okay, and thank you.
Any other further discussion?
Yeah, Chair, just want to say, typically in Robert's rules, when a motion's made, it can die for a lack of a second, but I don't believe it's appropriate or written in Robert's rules where a motion can't be considered and be shut down. So I just want to make that statement. I move that we fund CCBA for $10,000 with lottery funds.
Motion has been made. Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'm going to second that this year.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a comment, Commissioner Schrader?
I did want to say, I do know Tom Markgraf personally. I've known him for years, and I do believe even if we have a disagreement that he would, agree on this, that he would go by the will of the board. But I will have to say, I worry about the organization because I don't know what the tangible results are. That's what I'm concerned about. Are you bringing business in? We have lots of forums to discuss things. And I don't know fundamentally what the difference is between the West Side Economic Alliance and the CCBA, other than geography. So I do have some concerns about this. So I just want to mention that. Okay.
Any other discussion on this motion? I do have, I mirror Commissioner Schrader's, I would like to see really more deliverables. I mean, we have 47 pages of information in this packet for people coming forward on their P&Ls and their processes and really detailed financial statements. I don't see anything from CCBA. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but you know what? I don't see anything from the West Side Alliance either. I think they just assume that the money is going to keep coming in, but whatever. I don't know. So there's a motion on the table. Any further discussion? Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
I'm going to say no.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you very much. 4-1. Please do better in the future.
Chair, just one comment. I appreciate Commissioner Schrader's concerns. I believe that if that is a expectation, that we ought to craft that in a policy and apply that to all of the lottery dollars spent for all the organizations. And I'm not saying, I am not going to be critical of any chamber whatsoever. I think they do great work. I think they offer a valuable service for businesses. I think getting the voices out there, providing forums, all those things that are being done by the chambers and the Business Alliance are important. But I don't believe that, I can name a deliverable from a particular chamber that, would not compromise another chamber.
Well, I kind of understand what Commissioner Schrader is saying, because to me, there are organizations in the county where their deliverables are very obvious. And I understand this is a business organization, and you've gone through a metamorphosis, and you're doing X, Y, and Z, and you're trying. But to me, it's in the last year, okay, not including 23, it has been very difficult for me to point, oh, CCBA is doing this. So just, that's just a comment. Thank you very much. What's up next? Dan?
Have you ever had a bad day? We're killing it today. You had asked us a very pointed questions about Oregon City Business Alliance, and we responded incorrectly. And we do have a request from them. It's to the tune of $750. And we'd
Is
like.
it on here?
No, it's not.
It's not.
And we can come back and talk about that. Or we can get direction from the board today.
It's only for $750.
$750.
I don't have a problem with that.
My apologies for the error.
Ditto.
I just,
Forgive it.
I'm just kidding, we're just
But
killing it.
it's not $10,000, or else we'd be having a big
Well,
discussion.
I imagine we'd have a longer discussion.
So, Chair, it's appropriate. I'll make a motion.
Do we want to include it? See, we already passed all the dues for the chambers, so we need a separate motion for OCBA.
I would request that, yep.
Okay, Paul, go ahead.
I move to fund the OCBA for $750 as requested.
Second.
There's a motion from Commissioner Savas to fund OCBA at $750, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
What's
much. Our
next?
humble apologies.
Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Okay, what's
thank you,
next?
All right, so second up is on the agenda is item number 2 for consideration for the Clackamas County Historical Society, which is the Museum of Oregon Territory, MOOT. And the items, oh my goodness, is option 1 is to maintain existing award of $100,000, or option 2 is to decline award for the fiscal year 23-24. Staff recommendation is option 1, to maintain existing award of $100,000. In your packet is Attachment B, which they have provided their financials, their recommendation, their letter, and their financials. Any question?
Questions or comments, commissioners? Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move to fund the Clackamas County Historical Society at $100,000.
Commissioner Shaw has moved we approve the Clackamas County Historical Society for $100,000, and Commissioner West has seconded the motion. Further discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say that museums struggle to keep their head above water, and I believe that the Clackamas County Historical Society and the museum there here in Oregon City provides a good benefit to not only the people of Clackamas County, but everybody who comes to visit this area. Thank you.
And I do think it's a tourist attraction as well. This particular award, commissioners, is quite different because we actually own the land. And if we own something, I believe it's incumbent upon Clackamas County to continue to maintain it. And we did that. We paved their parking lot, we did some landscaping and a few other improvements a couple years ago. So I do think it's important that we continue with the culture in Clackamas County. Commissioner Savas?
Yes, I'm going to be supporting this today, but I also want to say that I believe, could be mistaken, but I believe my last time, it provides an important forum, a venue, if you will, not a forum, but a venue for forums, and that I believe the last forum that I attended was sponsored by the CCBA for what was, it was state legislative days or something like that. It was based on the state, there were a number of state legislators that were there. I can't say it was state legislative days, but it was legislative related.
Good.
I'm not sure who, was I the only one who attended that day? Or Mark, were you there?
Yeah, I recall that, yeah.
Yep.
Any further discussions? Tony, I believe there's a motion on the table. Let's take the poll.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Up next.
Okay, so item number 3 on your agenda today is for Clackamas County Arts Alliance. This is one of the presentations that you requested. So today, the options are 1, to maintain existing award of $100,000. 2, increase the award to $150,000, which is the ask of the Arts Alliance today. Or the third option is to decline award for fiscal year 23-24. The recommendation, staff recommendation, respectfully, the staff recommendation is for option 2 to increase the award to $150,000.
I would like the Clackamas County Arts Alliance representative to come forward, please, and ask, make your case, please. And please, your name and your organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Diane Alves. I'm the Executive Director at the Clackamas County Arts Alliance. And thank you, Chair Smith and Commissioners and Laura for inviting me to come talk to you today. I think in your packet what you have is our year-end report. We give you quarterly reports. We've been doing that for a while, and then a year-end report. So I think what you've all seen is our year-end report. But I wanted to highlight a couple of things that maybe you don't know about the Clackamas County Arts Alliance and what we do for you all. First of all, since 1994, we have worked with the Board of Commissioners and staff to advise and advocate for and serve as the chief resource for all arts and culture in Clackamas County. We serve the whole county in doing that. The Arts Alliance evolved from a volunteer group, and in 2003 we became our own 501c3, but continuing to work with the county and the staff to provide all the services. We are acknowledged as the go-to for information for all local arts activities, funding opportunities, and representation with all the local, county, regional, and statewide arts and culture organizations. The Arts Alliance is the chief resource for arts commissions, guilds, as well as hundreds of artists, writers, performers, creative entrepreneurs, businesses, and educators in the county. We continue to serve as the primary arts champion, and we have specifically today been asked to talk about a couple of things. And I want to highlight a couple of the projects we've done this last year specifically and talk about how we work with our other arts and culture folks to really leverage and get our ROI up. We currently are a small, what we say, a small but mighty staff at the Arts Alliance, and some of these projects we could not do on our own at all. So one of the things we did this last year is we've worked with Americans for the Arts on their, about every 5 years, they do something called the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study, or the AEP 6. And what that includes is we go around and gather data, both at events and ask individuals to fill out surveys. And then we also ask all the arts businesses and nonprofits to fill out a survey. And what's that meant, all of that big data is gathered, and what's that meant to show is how arts and culture is actually an economic driver to the county. Now, Americans for the Arts gathers that data across the country. They'll have national data in November that you'll be all invited to come to the release party, which we're having here in Clackamas County. But then all the data is aggregated down, and we'll get our own report. We have our, what was the AEP 5 report on our website, and now we'll be getting the new one. The exciting part about that is what we're seeing, and what we've anecdotally seen, is that arts and culture organizations, makers and creatives, have only increased in Clackamas County. So the work that we do is even more important than it was before. The early numbers show that we're right about that. What we're feeling is right. And we've more than doubled in the number of arts and culture organizations as well as businesses. So we'll be excited to share that data with you more. The other thing we've done this past year is work on something we're calling the Metro Arts and Culture Planning, which is we've worked with Multnomah County Arts and Culture and Washington County and us, all three together, and we're creating a region-wide arts and culture plan. On our own, we could not have created our own arts and culture plan for just Clackamas County. But by joining in with the other counties' funding, we're going to be able to have a plan not only for the whole metro region and tri-county area that maybe we can work on together, but we'll also have our own plan, and a very robust one, specifically for Clackamas County. That plan will be finished and released sometime in early 2024, and we're super excited about being able to share that with you all too. We also serve as the fiscal agent for Clackamas County Cultural Coalition, which means we distribute cultural trust funds to local artists, history, heritage, and humanity organizations. We've done that since 2014, I believe, and every year that grows. During COVID, the thing we were most excited about is not only were we distributing funds to arts and culture organizations here that were struggling, but we got to participate and then volunteered to also serve the Washington County cultural organizations because they didn't have a fiscal agent that was willing to do that. And it was almost $2.6 million that we were able to distribute through the Arts Alliance to those organizations during a time when a lot of them were shut and really struggling. So we continue to do that. Currently, I think during that process, there was about 32 organizations in the 2 counties that we were able to serve and continue to help through that time. As you know, if you look around your buildings, you see the wonderful art that's up on the wall in both the buildings. We do that through our artist exhibit program, where every year we work with over 60 artists that are Clackamas County artists specifically. Some of them are brand new into showing their art, and so we're helping them learn how to do that, learning how to process it. And then everyone that comes into the building, plus everyone who works here, gets to see the amazing art that's in both of the buildings. We continue to do that process as part of the funding that you've been giving us over the years. Honestly, when I looked it up, that's over $20,000 a year of art. We switch that out 3 to 4 times a year, as well as introducing you to new artists. We also work and provide space for the Safe Routes to Schools, the kids that do the art projects, and I know you all really love the Safe Route to Schools program. We hang their presentation. We also work with the employees here at the county. They always do a photo contest every year, and we hang their things, as well as working with recently Equity Inclusion Office and hanging some of the things that, and I think those pictures were in your packet. Mostly, I just want to say that we, obviously, you can, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. The key piece for us is that the commitment by this body, by the Board of Commissioners, to the Arts Alliance every year is seen by our other funders as a must-have. They like to come in and leverage it. They ask, almost every funder asks first what the commissioners, what this body is doing, how you're supporting, how the county is supporting us, and they see their funding as a way to leverage that. It's important that this funding in some way continues so we can continue to have that conversation. We do have Clackamas County in our name. People think we are part of the county. Even individual donors think we're part of the county and often say to us, why should we give you money when our tax dollars are going to help you? So it's something we've been working on for a while. We are a separate 501c3, but we really do serve the whole county. I think, as you all know, arts are essential to societal, cultural, and economic well-being. When you ask businesses why they relocate to a place or individuals what's important to them, they say access to arts and culture amenities is still one of the top things that they look for. We have, over the last few years, received a lot less funding. There's lots of different reasons for that. Different funders have different priorities now. Folks are trying to do more housing, addiction services, and things like that. And arts and culture always seems to sort of slip during that time. We've addressed that as a small organization by making as many cuts to things as we can, including our FTE. We now are down to 4 part-time staff only. And so we're trying our best to service the whole county in a way that we can do that. Thank you again for letting me come and have this opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have a couple questions, Diane. Thank you for coming and making the presentation. Why are you requesting $50,000 above the current award?
Over this last year, we have some of the funders who in the past who have funded us are choosing not to because they're moving their funding to those other priorities. And I would not, I mean, I'm the executive director there. I think I'd be amiss if I didn't ask for more money in various places, and I'm doing that everywhere. One of the things that that is in the packet that I didn't really talk about is we were able to apply for and receive some of the money through Workforce Partnership, and we're going to be working with them to see if we can change our business model. There may be a different way that the Arts Alliance, as an arts services organization, maybe look for more ways to do some more fee-for-service things or something. But the way we've constantly been funded over the past few years is just not going to keep working for us. And so we're super excited about over this next year working with them. But I'm asking everyone for additional money. So it's sort of my job to do that, I think.
So I think you answered my second question. You have actually had a decline in some of your other areas for funding.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, well, Commissioner Smith's question answered one of my questions, but the other one is, what kind of support does CCAA get from Metro in the way of dues in Washington County?
We get nothing from those folks. We are solely a Clackamas County organization. Now, each of those organizations also have their own arts and culture service providers, and so they're funding there.
Yeah, so, Diane, your CCAA focus
Right.
is Clackamas County centric, is that correct?
That's right, wholly Clackamas County. That's right.
Yeah, okay. And I think you already answered the question, what the extra $50,000 in dues is going to do. One more thing. Now, you're the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, in your documents here under funding, it says, community foundation priorities have shifted to BIPOC-led organizations, emergency housing, food insecurity, and opioid addiction services. How does that equate to Arts Alliance?
Well, that's the issue that we're facing because other funders have shifted their their
Okay.
funding priorities
I
to
see
those
what-
areas.
I see
Arts
what-
and culture has
I
become
understand.
less of a,
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, so Diane, you mentioned that you're down to four
part-time.
part-time?
Yep.
Okay, and down from what year?
just last year, we just made that change. Just our new fiscal year started July 1st.
Okay.
And as of in June, we made that change.
Yeah, I was just looking at your financials here on your profit and loss,
Right.
and it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, where'd I go? I just scrolled away from it. Yeah, there it
Yes.
is. Personnel expenses for 21-22 was $204,000, and then personnel expenses from 2022 to 2023 is $292.
Right.
That's an increase of $88,000. So
Right.
you mentioned the reductions. Was that reductions begin when?
It began July 1st of this, just July 1st. And the reduction started to happen in a few months ago. The problem is that, and what you're seeing in those numbers, Commissioner Savas, is that we had some additional staff time gathering these surveys, over 500 surveys. And the only way we were going to get those done is to do some additional staff time, and all the employees work hourly. So the increase in that number is based on the increase in making a focus in that spot.
Okay, so if I was to take your total, looking at the financials submitted here, I was to take a look at your totals there and try and correlate mathematically, financially, where those dollars, your total budget, where those dollars are expended for, either in grants or in serving arts and culture, where would that best be exhibited in your financials?
Well, honestly, I think the majority of the services that we do are reflected in staff time. I mean, that's really what we do. Each of us are out in meetings and pulling things together. We do, I mean, you'll see it in the AEP program a little bit. The great thing about that program is it's cost effective, and so it almost breaks even on its own. But the majority of the work we do will be shown in our staff out doing things in the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many people who are, maybe the words I'll use the word vendors
Right.
for lack of a better word, that are in the arts and culture industry, if you want to call it that.
Right.
How many of those are you in contact with on a regular basis?
Well, we're gauging this last year that we engaged with over 30,000 residents in Clackamas County in all the different ways that we did. Some of that is through, our website and our e-blasts and social media and things like that. Some of those were in face-to-face meetings. The great thing about this last year is we were in all those conversations, both in the arts and culture planning that we were doing. We had a lot of community conversations all over the county, bringing arts and culture folks together and asking them what did they need, what kind of support do they need. So we did a lot of hands-on conversations this year, which is why we've started to make one of our shifts is we're adding makers and creatives to the group of people that we work with. Not that we haven't always worked with them, but we're really separating them out. We're creating a whole new board committee for makers and creatives, and all of that bubbled up from all those community conversations we were having. And that was everywhere from Molalla to Estacada to Milwaukee we had community conversations everywhere, plus Zoom conversations also, so people from all over the county could join.
Okay, so again, going back to the extra $50,000
Right.
that you were, so that again is to cover loss of revenue from another source.
From other sources, right.
And that source on your spreadsheet is which?
It'll be under grants. So it'll be under grants and funding partners.
Okay, so that's going to be reduced from 69,000 to,
I'll tell you, 4 of our funders that we normally will join us during the year are not going to join us this year. They've already told us that. They told us
Really?
that this last spring, so.
So we'll be pretty much, not only are we currently the largest funder, but we'll be even more so.
No, actually, and I'm happy to leave this behind. We, our board has, I have a draft budget, but our board is not going to pass it until we have this conversation. But we were lucky enough to get through Workforce to get a grant there, and then also, and that's a brand-new funder we didn't know about until recently, as well as a new funder with Oregon City, their project that we just had with them. So that's $80,000 from Workforce and $50,000 from Oregon City. So those two combined with you, and then we have probably another $40,000 that we're asking for right now for next spring. You won't be the biggest, but we have some new funders that have been able to join us.
Okay, so
in
you'll
these
be
one-time
made
projects.
whole then, basically?
That's what I'm hoping for, yes. I would really hope that we could do that, and actually maybe increase some time for one of our employees, but at this point, we're not planning on that.
Going full circle, last
Yes.
question. I'm just trying to understand the rationale for making your
The
employees
additional
go
50.
half-time or part-time.
Oh, the rationale for making everyone part-time? Because that's what our budget would allow us to do, honestly. We just looked at but each of the people do very different things. I'm out in the community a lot more. I'm working with different projects. We have a communications person who does all our communications and social media and things like that, and our calendaring and all those types of things. We have the person who does the AEP program, and we're at, I think, 18 galleries now around the county, and that she's working with over 70 artists a year, so that's another part-time. So each of those part-time people do very different things.
All right, thank you.
But that's what the budget would hold at this point.
Thank you. We have other commissioners for questions. Thank you. Commissioner West, you're up.
So in the news regarding this topic,
Yep.
it looks like RAC is, am I
That's
right?
our next topic coming up.
It's not, does that affect you?
No.
It doesn't
Our next
impact your budget with that relationship?
No,
That's my
no,
question.
it does not affect our budget. I mean, unless we
Okay.
apply for a separate grant from RAC
Okay.
and then they give it to us or not.
That was my question, to
Right.
see if there was any intersection there.
No.
And by the way, really good job on the curation here in the
Oh, thank you.
buildings. One artist who was doing, I think it was a little bit of watercolor, but it was sketched mostly like natural life or plant life, was quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And I appreciated her work, and all of it's been great. And the photographs that you put up with the little raccoon in the tree and the rest was really good. So good job. Yeah.
Thank you. We have good artists in Clackamas County,
Yes.
amazing people. so.
It's great to see them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, Diane, thank you for the information. On your paperwork here, paragraph 6200, personnel expenses, 2 years ago, wages, employee, staff, $167K, and for the year just ending here on 30 June, $240,000. What is your payroll expectation for this current year, 23-24?
Yeah, so the upcoming year, it will be, just want to make sure I got this right. 181.
So it's going down. And then one other question on the 240K that ended on 30 June. How many FTEs were involved in that?
That was 5 FTE, but
Five.
with additional hours. And so
yeah.
like for me or another staff person, we work additional hours. And since we're all, we were all hourly employees, by doing those additional hours, gathering those surveys, we got additional.
So
we
you
just
have
spent-
5 FTEs that are full-time, 40 hours a week staff?
No, some of those were part-time. All of us were part-time. 5 FTEs were part-time last year, except we were working additional hours. And that's why you got that bigger number.
Okay. And one other question. Your alliance,
Yes.
what effect or action are you taking that will affect artwork in our new courthouse? Can we expect anything from CCAA on
Yes,
that? Okay,
yes.
for the
Yes.
people of this county?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a member on Chair Smith's committee for the Arts Committee. Work closely with them. We're talking about all different things, including having us be, as the fundraising for that committee moves forward to provide art, being the fiscal sponsor and serving as the fiscal sponsor as we apply for grants and things like that that the county cannot, and taking individual donations. So yes, I'm a very active member on the committee.
Applying for grants that the county cannot?
That's right, cannot apply
explain that?
for. Right, so lots of nonprofit foundations have rules about who can and cannot
Okay.
apply. So as a nonprofit, I could apply to, for instance, pay for an artist to do a piece of art for the.
I see.
Yeah, for the building.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good questions, Commissioner Scholl, but I want to be clear, this money is not going to go to courthouse art, nor will any
That's right.
of your other funding sources. You very generously have offered to be, quote, our fiscal agent, which means you can collect the monies and process them out and help us with our grant applications. And applying grants for arts is very different, and we appreciate that. We also realize, too, that there is a fee in with that, and we
That's
do
right.
not expect you to work for free,
Right.
and any money's coming in, there would be administrative costs for that. I was very happy you were able to do that.
That's right.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, do you ever apply for any NEA funding?
We have in the past. We're looking for, we're always looking for projects in order to do that. In fact, one of the ones for the courthouse, we're talking about maybe jointly
Right.
applying for NEA. But the last couple of years, we have not, mostly just because the county, there has not been a joint project that we could apply for that. And on our own, we're not a really good match for NEA on our own without doing our town or some other bigger project with another partner.
Okay, so you really don't give any additional monies like to our theater groups or things of that sort?
We do not. The role of being an art services organization is that we don't give out individual grants. We are the fiscal agent for the Cultural Coalition that does give out grants, and we manage that process and everything that goes with that. But we do not specifically give out grants.
And the Cultural Coalition, explain the nexus, please,
Yeah, so
with
the
that.
Cultural Coalition is a separate nonprofit. Every county has a cultural coalition in the state of Oregon, and that's where the money comes from, the Cultural Trust down to the cultural coalitions to give out to local organizations. We serve as their fiscal sponsor, which means we manage their money and help them do that process.
So essentially, if any other group wanted to apply for funding, they would have to go to the Cultural Coalition, which
That's
is
right.
its own private.
It's its own nonprofit, and they have their own website, so anybody can either go through our website or go to the Clackamas County Cultural Coalition website. And they'll be opening, I think, probably in September, and they do a fall process every year.
So basically, other arts groups that are specifically in our county, should they want to get grant dollars, they would go directly to the Cultural Coalition and apply for those?
They could, absolutely, yep.
I'm just asking because I want to see, I'm getting questions about, where money is getting directed and how they get that money and where they should go to.
Through the
And-
Cultural
And
Coalition.
it was unclear whether it was you or the Cultural
Yeah,
Coalition.
Cultural Coalition. We can help them get there, too.
I just have a quick question.
Yep.
All the art that's displayed in these two county buildings, I notice they're always the same medium and they're very consistent with every display. Now, who pays, for instance, the photographs that are displayed now on some shiny board? I don't know what the process is called.
Right.
Yeah, and then I notice when we have oils or watercolors, they're nicely framed. Now, does the artist pay for that?
The artist, that's all comes from the artist, specifically how they want to present their artwork, right?
see.
And I would encourage you to go, if you've not gone to the building next door and looked in the 3D cabinet, there's always amazing 3D art there, and you'll start to see more, fiber arts and things like that start to appear too in the areas, so. We also, if you go by one of the health centers, both Sunnyside and Beaver Creek, we also are hanging things in both of those places also, so, as well as all the libraries and other places, so.
Okay. Any further comments or questions?
Yeah, just one. On the art that is displayed, let's say here, for example, and sometimes those are for sale.
Yeah.
Are always for sale or sometimes?
They're always for sale, unless the artist doesn't want to sell it for some reason, but normally they always are for sale.
Do all the proceeds go to the artist?
All the proceeds currently go to the artist, yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? I will entertain a motion. Item 3.
Where is it? Well, I guess my question is 100 or 150,000?
Staff recommends option 2.
So move.
Do we need to say it, or?
So I need a second?
Oh, second, okay. So what is the sum of this from 150,000, right?
Yeah, on page,
150.
on page 3, Commissioner West.
Yes, I will second for 150,000 if that's the
Item
motion.
3, to award the Clackamas County Arts Alliance $150,000 was made by Commissioner Schrader, and the motion is seconded by Commissioner West. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Up next.
Okay, thank you. Good discussion. So item 4 on our agenda is options for Regional Arts and Cultural Council, as we know as RAC. The options are 1, maintain existing award at $62,000, or 2, decline award for fiscal year 23-24. The recommendation, staff respectfully recommends option 2 to decline the award for fiscal 23-24. In this case, because we wish to have the investments, because of the adjustment to Clackamas County Arts Alliance, so that we are focusing 100% of our investment in Clackamas County.
Okay. Thank you. Questions or comments? Yes.
Sorry, we have representatives from RAC
And I
who would like
wanna-
to make a
yeah.
presentation.
Thank you, I want to,
Please
sorry.
come forward.
That's what I was
I'd like
asking.
to introduce our guests from RAC today, and these are, my apologies, I'm shuffling paper here. And we've got joining us today, Carol Tatch, Co-Executive Director, Chief of External Operations for the Regional Arts and Culture Council, and Mario Mesquita, thank you, Manager of Advocacy Engagement for the Regional Arts and Cultural Council.
Welcome, and thank you for coming. Please introduce yourselves again, and who wants to start first?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Yes. Carol Tatch. I am actually the Executive Director for the Regional Arts and Culture Council as of August 1st, so happy to point that in. It was different at the time that we started our report back. Mario?
I'm going to ask if you would pull your microphone closer so we could hear better.
Okay, is this better?
The optics in this room are a little bit different. Thank you.
Yeah, this
We
works.
want to hear everything you say.
Perfect. Excellent. I want to be heard. Mario, will you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Mario Mesquita, Manager of Advocacy and Engagement, and I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, yes. And we have been here a few times, so wonderful to be back in this space. Thank you very much for the opportunity to follow up your June 28th presentation. We had a chance to look at that, and I'd love to thank Gary for popping in some RAC information in the room and our joy in being able to report to you today. We did submit information directly responding to questions from this slate of commissioners, and I'm in a space to answer any other questions that may come up. The Regional Arts and Culture Council enjoys its connection and collaboration with Clackamas County and has done so since 1995 through an intergovernmental agreement signed by the county, the city of Portland, Metro, and Washington and Multnomah counties. In that space, RAC has continued to serve for 28 years to be a local arts agency for Clackamas County. To put in a little bit of personal information, my first moments here in the state of Oregon, about 9 years, was spent in Clackamas County. So I'm very much of this space and in this space, and have great memories of my time at the Clackamas Repertory Theater and understanding and embedding art in the work and my life here in Oregon. I know there was a sense that RAC being in Portland is Portland-centric. We are not. We serve the entire region and work up to the state as well as the national spaces to bring Clackamas County as well as our other IGA partners information in those spaces. There was another concern that was lifted up with regards to RAC's, what we take for our admin fees, and I'd love to address that, Commissioner West. As you'll see in the information we provided, the average for the past 5 years for Clackamas County is about 2%. That's extremely low. We are looking at those opportunities. I would say a lot of that comes from the fact that we're able to aggregate dollars, which we have also lifted up how we are able to leverage the 62 that we get from you into twice as much and a little more, and some years have been even greater over that time. That means direct funding. So other than the 2%, the averaged out 2%, the rest of your funding comes right back into Clackamas County. Your artists, your creatives, your art-serving organizations receive that funding directly and have over all of this time. We do this out of a sense of what we were created for. We were created to be that centralized agency that could uplift and leverage and serve all of the spaces that meet the Portland metro area. Our funding is very different. Thank you for having the opportunity to have Diane up here. What the services that she's able to provide through the Clackamas County Arts Alliance are supported by RAC. We actually have a grant that's pending with her and the Clackamas County Arts Alliance for work that they want to do next year, well, this fiscal year. And we continue to meet the needs of Clackamas County residents and its artists and creatives to do that work. Are there any other specific questions? Otherwise, I can just go through our report that directly address the questions that you had at that time on the 28th.
Commissioners, do you have questions?
I have a question. The recent news that
Yes.
of the defunding, how is that going to impact your organization?
Two ways. One, we actually have a dispute with regards to the information that's been provided. And we have spoken out. I was on Think Out Loud last week, and we're working with a PR company for the rest of what the words will say. That said, RAC itself is a strong and flexible organization. Our work is through contracts. The City of Portland is one of those contracts. We continue to meet community. In fact, we've had to deny contracts in order to make room for the contracts that we have. So we sit in a space where we can continue to serve the way we have. We may be serving the Portland City community differently, but we will still be here to serve the rest of our contracted partners.
Could you, I'm not sure all my colleagues know about the news release. So
Okay.
could-
I know, we saw
That's
it.
what I mentioned a minute,
Yep,
yeah.
Okay,
yep,
great.
yep, we know.
Indeed.
Thank you.
I believe Commissioner Scholl, you're up next.
Yes, good morning.
Good
Thank you
morning.
for coming today to visit us.
Certainly.
I'm a bit confused. On your paperwork under FY24 funding request presentation, paragraph 4, finance, percent of funds used for administrative fees / operational costs, it says RAC retained a moderate 9.68% to cover grants, management, and general costs. So I don't understand, you just mentioned 2% overhead.
I mentioned
don't-
an aggregate of 5 years of 2%, but for FY23, it was 9.6 versus the 14 that was mentioned in this room on the 28th.
I see.
So 9.6 is still well below our rates for any of our contracts that we work with in the community, and we're okay with that. Our effort is to ensure that as much of your dollars get back out into the community as possible.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for asking.
Commissioner West, and then I have a question.
Yes,
Thank you for being here.
absolutely.
Super appreciate it.
You're new for me, so wonderful to meet you.
Thank you to both of you. Quick, two questions. One, when Portland made the decision that it made, does that reallocate resources from you guys to say, we love Portland and a vibrant Portland's good for all of us, but if you're not paying, you don't play, and you guys do shift your attentions to the other parts of the region? Do those resources flex out to Clackamas County, Washington County, or other areas where you guys do your advocacy and your work around the arts? How does your plan, your business plan change with Portland's decision?
Yes.
And then I'll just jump on the next question. You said, I tend to always love it if we spend $1 and we get 2 in return. That's a real good. That's what
even better when it's
Can you
3.
explain to me how you got to that and how specifically Clackamas County's dollars that it gives? How do we see that in that 2-to-1 return? What is the evidence of that?
Perfect, excellent. The first question I may re-question. I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. Are you asking that since Portland is choosing to pull out of a contract with RAC, will RAC continue to serve Portland?
Yeah.
Okay. We have to. We are the local arts agency. We are here to support artists and creatives in the Tri-County region, and we support, again, locally, at the state level, and at the national level. The funding we brought in for the NEA was to support Clackamas and Washington counties. Portland, Multnomah County didn't need it because they put a lot of money into their grant making. So our services for our artists and creatives will have to continue, because one of the things we're very concerned about is how the dollars will come out of the city. We have been doing the work for 28 years. There is no easy flex to what we have learned over that time and how we continue to meet community. And as I will say in this space, I thank you for the public forum, that we meet and exceed our contracted expectations for the city of Portland. So we will continue to know that artists and creatives will need support in that space, as well as across the region, and we will continue to do so. The reallocation of our funding to do that, yes, absolutely. We're going to still need to bring in additional dollars to support the additional work in Portland that Portland itself will not be paying for. And then also in their process, they're going into an RFP. If RAC decides to apply for the RFP and are doing services there, then that's still a contract relationship that we have there.
Can I interject really quick with a question, follow-up?
Yes.
So do other counties and organizations end up supplementing the work that you're still having to do in Portland because Portland's not paying their way?
In the way that the funding from Portland has supplemented how our work happens in the counties. So even for Clackamas County, and hopefully you had a chance to look at the information, part of that leverage is bringing in those additional dollars. And specifically, slide 2 of the presentation kind of shows you where that funding, that pie comes from. We got 53,000 of the 60 that you gave us went out in grants in Clackamas County. To that, we added $4,000 from the Portland pot. We added $1,500 from the Metro pot, and then from the NEA, we added $60,000. So your 53 became $119,000 in that way. And we wanted to make sure that you saw where the pots were coming from that come in to support Clackamas County.
And those dollars directly came to this county?
Yes, and went out to artists. We provided a list of the artists, not only for FY23, but we were asked to provide 5 years of that information. So we did that so that you could see who has received that information. The largest of the dollars goes out to our general operating support partner, who is the Lakewood Center for the Arts. So that they get that larger pot every year for their general operations annually through REC.
Thank you for answering my questions. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Metro has supported you,
Yes, Metro is one of our 5 contracted partners through the intergovernmental agreement.
and they give you how much money?
I do not have that information at
Is it in your
hand.
documents?
I can look and see.
Maybe your partner can look that up.
Yes, I'll look at our budget.
Another question. Are you supported by the Portland Arts Tax, the Portland Arts?
We are not, and I would love to give a little bit more information on that because it does come up in the room annually. So I'll look for that budgeted item, but let me speak to the arts and the Arts Education and Access Fund. That ordinance was passed by by citizens of Portland. It pulls $35 from those who are at a specific level with their household income. And RAC was initiated as a partner to first and foremost be a partner with the Arts Oversight Committee to ensure that the ordinance was happening the way it was supposed to. But then also we get dollars that we re-grant back out to organizations in the community. In that process, RAC does not receive support from the arts tax. We are simply stewards, and then we make sure those dollars go back out into community, some of which may fund artists who live in Clackamas County but work in Portland City, or who live in Portland but have their creative life here in Clackamas County.
We heard a presentation from the Clackamas County Arts Alliance that they had to take measures to trim back their budget, and they reduced their FTE and maybe made some other cuts because the income wasn't coming in. Are you prepared to do the same?
For what process? Since so much of your
because
money
Portland-
goes back out, there's no admin that really is significant to.
How many FTE do you have?
At our organization right now, I believe it's 25 to 26 FTE.
And you don't see a reduction in that FTE based on Portland not funding you?
I see the opportunity of a reduction, but at this point, we're looking at our budget and not seeing a need to reduce our FTE. And to understand, in 2020, our team of over 40 was cut due to a process that started with the city. We are just now coming up to a space where we can say how many of your artists are getting awards, because our grants team, which was down to 2, is back up to 4, which is the complement that ensures we're supporting the region the way it needs to be.
How many government entities contribute to RAC?
The 3 counties, Metro and the city of Portland, and the federal government, and we get funding from the state of Oregon.
So that's quite a lot.
Yes, indeed.
That's quite a lot compared to Clackamas County Arts Alliance, who their funding mechanisms and streams, they're unable to do the outreach that you are for various reasons, probably their structure. Any other questions? Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, ma'am. On your paperwork here, revenue, contracts, 7.5 million, contributions, 122K, workplace giving, 73,000, and salary and wages, 2.1 million. So when you say contracts, do you mean contributions from the federal government and the state government? Because I don't see only 122,000 in contributions. So how much money is reflected in this from the federal and state government to support your organization?
So our contributions in FY '23 were $470,000, and actually a little more because we got an additional amount from one of our, from a bequest that came into the organization. So our contracts are the 5 entities for the IGA. We have other for-profit, contracts outside of the government, like we're doing a project for the airport, for the Port of Portland, which is outside of those contracts.
Yes, ma'am, but I'm talking about revenue, money coming in to the RAC.
Into the organization, yes,
Yeah,
through
so
contracts.
how much do you receive, it's not listed here, from the federal government and the state government?
So for our federal grant that we have with the NEA was for $500,000, and those dollars are pulled as we expend them in Clackamas County and Washington County. So that's a reimbursement for the work. That the grant itself was $500,000. We get funding from the Oregon Arts Commission, and that's around $25,000. And there's been, for the past few years, there's been additional dollars that came in through ARPA and CARES.
Okay, and I have one more question. In your documents here.
Yes.
You have let me just go back up here real quick. You have a document from the American Arts Alliance, a study done in fiscal year 2015.
AEP 6, AEP 5, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Diane mentioned it as well.
In 2015, that shows a study of the benefit from RAC to Clackamas County specifically.
Okay, no, the study was run in Clackamas County, and actually Diane just referred to it. We also ran one in Multnomah County and Washington County for AEP 6. And it's basically what it is saying is that over $14 million is generated through arts and culture engagement. So it is an economic driver for Clackamas County. And one of those ways that happens is people going to plays, the funding that comes into individual artists to bring folks in for tourism.
Okay, so on that study, there's no study that's more recent than 2015?
Exactly. They do it every 5 years. COVID knocked them off of doing it in 2020, so it ran about a year and a half later. So we're just now going to get those results at the end of October, I believe. Mario ran it for Multnomah County.
Okay, and one last question.
Yes.
Is it your expectation that study will show an increase over the $14 million that was reflected in 2015? In other words, are we going up?
It
Or coming
depends,
down?
right? Because COVID brought in a lot of changes in our landscape, especially for artists and creatives. In fact, in how they interact, going into restaurants, because the AEP study is literally, did you buy a ticket? Did you go to a restaurant? Did you stay in a hotel? It's looking at all of the economic pieces that drill down into an engagement that's something at the Lakewood Center for the Arts. I cannot say, a lot depends on how Diane ran the process here in Clackamas County. I can speak to what we did in Multnomah County, which was a lot of outreach with a lot of organizations. They did specify this year as different from what they've done in prior years to also prioritize looking at what's happening in Black and Brown-led organizations. So we have a deeper study this year whose outcomes I can't predict, but I'm looking forward to it saying and showing that there is an impact from COVID. We need to keep funding artists and creatives, and the support that needs to happen has to happen at a groundswell level so that things are being held by community and supported by community. Without COVID, I would say your returns would have been well over $14 million because we know Clackamas County has grown. It's grown since I lived here. And, you know, that input and the input of supporting artists and creatives, that output of having spaces where there's art to be seen or there are performances to be seen has only increased over that time.
Oh, yes, okay, thank you.
Which just speaks to investment.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Mr. West?
Can you help me understand the differences between, I know that you guys are more regional, obviously when you're way more regional than the Clackamas County Arts
Yes.
Alliance, and they're Clackamas County centric focused, right? But are any of the services that you offer duplicative to what they could do locally? Can they do what you do locally in the same type of work? Or what's the benefit of having that extra layer regional component?
Absolutely, and that's really why I figured we were here. We're here to talk about why RAC, right? And I would say, based on information that you just received from Diane, which is our own understanding and how we've engaged with Diane, is that there's a wealth of services that you don't have access to because of the scope of work of the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, and that was set up as part of its founding. The RAC, I think their work precedes the IGA of 1995 by a year. So in coming together in that space, Clackamas County commissioners, and the agreement was signed by one of the commissioners at the time, was to create a region-wide organization that could bring in that wider scope, that advocacy. You know, we're at Cultural Advocacy Day. RAC is sitting and talking with our local legislators to say what is needed down in these spaces because we are aware what's needed in the spaces. So there's the advocacy standpoint. There's the fact that we can grant out across our landscape. We just had our largest grant-making session ever. We put out over $7 million. We had the highest influx of applications in our lifetime. When we're looking at that increasing as artists are understanding that RAC is a resource for them to be able to get funding to do their work, as well as organizations, because it's not just individuals. That's the sweet spot, is that we can fund to individuals, but also we fund to organizations. The Clackamas County Cultural Coalition has limited funding from the Oregon Cultural Trust. We are the fiscal sponsor for the Multnomah County Cultural Coalition, and we are aware that their work is adjacent to what we do, and we still have that wider breadth of being able to engage across that space and literally lift up, right? When when Chair Maria Jackson from the NEA visited last October, because of the NEA grant, her effort was to see how infusing dollars into these spaces could really invigorate the community to activate for arts and culture. And that's what we want folks at the NEA thinking. Let's go into all of our spaces, both rural and local.
Is some of that duplicative to what we could do on a local level in Clackamas County Arts Alliance? Can they go for those same grants and those same accesses to dollars, or do those have to go through a regional partner? I'm just saying, is it duplicative?
Yeah, I would have to say I don't know. Again, the CCAA was created for a specific reason outside of the work that we do.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, just going to put my business hat on for a
Yes.
moment. So I'm inclined to support the request. However, I'm concerned about the previous question as far as your FTEs. So,
Okay,
and this,
yes.
just putting the business hat model on.
Absolutely.
If you're getting less resources, obviously those staff are being paid by some of the resources you receive, which
Absolutely.
is natural for any organization. And that reduction that you just experienced, whatever that turns out to be, is significant. So my question is, it would just seem mathematically that somewhere there's got to be some give, right?
Absolutely.
So if you maintain the full hours and staffing of 20 FTE, that means there's less going out the door in the grants and for arts and culture. Or it's a combination of maybe some reductions in staff, to keep the output, right, a little bit higher. So
Absolutely, yes.
do you anticipate some flexibility there, or?
We have to, because as you said, we have to have our business hat on at all times. If RAC is not here to serve the community, it's not doing anyone any good.
Right.
But our initial looks at our opportunities are not currently residing in reducing our team, simply because we need the team at the level of the work that we have to do. The grant, the support from the city would end in June of next year. We have a whole year of perhaps $8 million in grants to get out. To do that with a reduced team means reduced efficiencies, and that's not going to be good for the community if we're not able to do our work with the same type of dexterity and flexibility and accuracy that we've been able to do. It is a very initial first step to say, we'll cut folks. However, that's not how RAC enters the space. It's what are our opportunities around that, making sure that we give ourselves time to see, and of course, working with our board, who is our fiscal, manager, to see what changes are working, what aren't, what are our next steps. So we have contingency planning already in place,
Right,
if that's your question.
Yeah, that is,
Absolutely.
yeah, good
Yes.
response. Of course, now putting my county commissioner hat on, I want to make sure that if the award is made here today, that, we see, essentially the similar results as the year prior, right? There's
Absolutely.
not a reduction in that. So that's my other hat. Yeah.
And if I could also respond to that, and I know I need to wrap it up, Tootie. We've been here and I got to get to work. What we're seeing from Clackamas County is a need for more attention, not less, right? Your artists, your groups are growing, we're getting more applications. So I would not expect to see anything less. I would say that RAC is going to figure out how we can bring you more, because if you aren't able to increase what you give, we still have to find funding for artists here. And we're already starting to do that. $20,000 in the grants that went out in our latest Arts 3C round did not come from Clackamas County for 6 artists. We want to see how we can keep doing that, because you have the artists and we want to see them funded.
Yeah. Chair, in the sake of time, I move to fund the RAC for the $62,000 request.
A motion has been made. Do I hear a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. I would like to speak to this. I'm inclined not to award the $62,000, and this is why, based on my questions and your answers, it appears that you are a very well-heeled organization, taking funds, accepting funds because of your organization from state, federal, local entities. I believe the money that we have been allocated here through the lottery dollars needs to support Clackamas County-centric organizations. I think that's very important. I do think you have a redundancy of services. I think you have a greater outreach to acquire more funds because of the way of your legal and organizational structure. I also think, I did not hear from you that you said, well, we might cut costs in the future. I see no real in your documentation that, oh, we had to cut costs. There was no urgency to receive this money, as with the Clackamas County group. I would like to see, Commissioners, that we fully fund the Clackamas County organization. I appreciate the work you've done. You have made many cases before this board, when I was here last time and here this time, about the supposed return on investment to Clackamas County. I have trouble tracking that, to be honest with you. I appreciate your efforts, but I really can't support the continued funding of RAC on this, and I really want to see we build our Clackamas County-centric organizations. Thank you very much. Commissioners,
May I
is there
ask a
any other
question?
motion?
May I make
Yes.
One question. Question for Laura Edmonds. In the documents today is the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study that, for Clackamas County, that I referenced before from 2015. Was that put in the background documents today to support the RAC or the CCAA? Or did you put that in there just for general knowledge?
That report was provided to us by RAC.
By RAC, okay.
It's part of their attachments.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, there was a motion made. It was not seconded. Do I hear another motion?
So I don't get to speak.
Well, I'm going to ask a question here. As I'm looking at page 46 of the attachment, there's a letter of support for the Lakewood Theater Center for Arts, and it looks like they have been a beneficiary of those dollars. So those look like dollars that are directly and unique to the Clackamas County Arts Alliance.
And how much is that, Paul?
Well, that amount that's in that box there is approximately, was it 20 some odd thousand? Let's go pull that back up here.
I think it was 40.
I think it's
But-
40.
But it just seems that there's an example, yeah, the total award was $45,000 plus $6,000. If I'm reading that correctly, for a total of $51,000. So yeah, there it is. There's a box that says $51,000. So, I mean, there's a unique and direct, a unique funding stream and a direct benefit to Clackamas County. So I don't see, yeah, I made the motion. I don't see any value in, unless someone else wants to make the motion again. But
Well,
May I
so
ask a question?
regarding, please, madam, regarding Lakewood, we could give them a grant on our own for a quite lesser amount than $50,000. I assume that the $62,000 you're getting from Clackamas County does not fully fund the Lakewood Theater at $50,000. I assume there's matching funds involved somewhat. And if there is the will of this board to support Clackamas County-centric artwork, Lakewood Theater, we could fund that separately ourselves. I'm not saying that, this is something that we've done in the past. It's just an idea out there, because I did say we needed to support our local folks, I believe, first, who don't have the reach and that this organization does with all the different funding sources. Commissioner Schrader, I believe you were next.
Yeah, and just for clarity, I do serve on the board of Lakewood Theater. I also serve on the board of Clackamas Repertory Theater, which always puts me in a very awkward position. I don't think RAC has funded ever Clackamas Rep, have they?
They last applied in 2012, and I think it's because they serve as part of a foundation that they don't come
Okay,
to
I
RAC,
don't-
but we don't know.
I
Laura
I
did
don't know
ask
the
us.
answer. I don't know the answer to that. I know that the college has a foundation and that they have a revenue stream that might be filling that gap. I'm torn because, of course, the board I serve on would like to have those dollars. But my dilemma is this, is that we're basically, we have an economic development department that is depending on this money for business expansion, retention, and recruitment. And I'm a big supporter of the arts, quite frankly. And I have struggled with whether or not, as Chair Smith said, that's why I asked the question about the Oregon Cultural Trust. They give out grants. And that's money from the state, that's specifically a revenue stream from the state, correct? But they are not applying for like the NEA grants and things of that size. And I wonder why our own arts groups haven't actually, are they able to do that? Because certainly I would like to see Lakewood get the dollars from RAC, but it puts me in a very awkward position because as much as I want to fund it, I also believe we're going to get a better return on our investment longer term with our own Clackamas County Arts Alliance. So I'm in the middle of a dilemma with this one.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner West?
Yeah, my family's passionate about the arts. We collect, we support local artists, we have them hanging all over our home. We go to Lakewood Theater frequently with Commissioner Schrader. Commissioner Schrader, you kind of were getting to some of my questions as I'm concerned about the ramifications or the ripple effect to things like Lakewood Theater, which are vital assets to the community, or other local artists. I think part of the reasons why I didn't even give a second, because I don't fully understand that need and how we can still support that, and if this is the best avenue to do it, or if we go and find a way to carve out our own path locally to do it. That was my reasoning. I want to give you a second. You were trying to say something. I want to give you space to say that with my time, so go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, my question was for Chair Smith, because I did not understand the dilemma of where your dollars go to. All of your dollars go to Clackamas County artists. That is what we do. Washington County dollars goes to Washington County artists. What we're able to do is give you more. And so if you're looking at $51,000 going to Lakewood Center for the Arts, and you gave us 62, but we were able to fund over $60,000 more, that speaks to, yes, all of your dollars, except for that $9,000 that was taken for admin, went back out into your community, into Clackamas County. That is our commitment to doing that work, in addition to an additional $50,000 that we also brought into, $60,000 that we brought in.
I'll say this. Do we think that by making this Clackamas County local and bringing these funds back just to local and away from RAC, do we feel like that we could get a 2-to-1 return on those dollars?
Well, since that Clackamas County rep isn't here to answer that question, but I have a question for Gary.
Okay.
Goes to what you were saying.
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Gary, is it possible that we could just fund the Lakewood Theater? And if RAC wants to come in and add not the 50,000, but whatever match you think you could, that would reduce our overall. Lakewood Theater would be funded, I don't know, 15, 20,000 of this, and it still wouldn't be the 62,000. And we're able to put that money back into either the CCAA or our economic development plans. By the way, commissioners, are very robust. And we have really made the economic development and the attraction of businesses into Clackamas County as one of our priorities going forward. That's why we've hired Laura Edmonds to take over the program, and she's done a really deep dive into funding, and she's doing a lot of work right now. So that is a possibility.
Yeah.
Gary, is that possible?
You could direct staff to come up with a grants program to directly fund arts organizations in the county. You could have us work with the Arts Alliance, that we give them more money and they could do it, the Arts Alliance, for us. You could do anything you like. We can come up with a program, yes.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I guess I'd be remiss to not at least ask the question or point out in one of the pages, I did mention the $51,000, but also there's a listing of some artists and some organizations for a total of $36,000, including Essex Arts Commission and so on. Are all these listed here for these individual artists and organizations? Are all those Clackamas County?
Yes.
Okay. So it seems to me, Chair, if I do the math, that there's an additional, there's a return on investment and then some.
Absolutely.
So mathematically, I think that the service offered here renders a financial benefit beyond just the money we're paying in.
Okay. I understand that, so why don't we use our CCAA to do it and RAC?
It sounds like that's, I won't say a different universe, but it sounds like it's a different service.
Based on what Diane said in the room.
Mr. West?
Clackamas County Arts Alliance does wonderful work, but I don't know in their limited budget and capacity that that they could fully redo that ROI right now with 4 part-time staff. I want it all to be Clackamas and Clackamas all the way. My heart is with Clackamas. This is my home. I bet you, I wouldn't be surprised if one of you, or both of you, or one of you lived here also.
My first 10 years
Okay,
were here
so,
in
yeah,
Clackamas County,
so we love Clackamas. That's
Had a
apparent.
home and everything, yes.
I don't know if we can get a better ROI if I'm just looking at these numbers. I just look at that this is a lot of people throughout the county. It's quite a diverse makeup of people that are actually getting, those accesses. That's how I see this right now.
Commissioners, we're running up against the clock. I would say we have about 5 minutes left, whether we make a decision today or not. We can always carry it over to another time. We have an important employee award luncheon, and since I am directing that, I need to leave very soon to go down and prepare for that. So Commissioners, unless there's another motion and a second to carry this forward, Gary, we could take it up later.
Yes.
Maybe do some more research, maybe talk about it later. I don't really want to hurry anything today.
We can bring it back, yes.
Yeah.
So Commissioners, do we agree to, Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, on that line, like we were told this morning, that the next economic impact study should be due out in October.
October, yes.
And at that time, I'd like to look at that and look at this issue again.
That actually would help solve my
That
dilemma,
time-
too. Yes.
If I may respond, Commissioner Scholl, that timeline, we just opened our Arts 3C, which is our fall grant-making program, and so we want to make sure that Clackamas County grants aren't affected by that process, and that timing may. I just want to put that here in this space.
Okay, thank you.
And I will conclude, I am not convinced you're doing everything you can to save money as the other organization does. You're very large organizations, and maybe the revenue that was not given to you by Portland has no impact or not. I can't tell. That's my issue. You said you have not cutting back, reducing FTE yet, but you obviously aren't worried about it, or you're not in a hurry to do that. So that is my dilemma. Commissioners, we need to go to an awards luncheon. Thank you very much.
It's coming back.
Yes, I said it's coming back. See no further business before this commission. We are adjourned.